Okay, folks, this is part two analysis. Now, this is the analysis of part two of the book study on Carroll Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. Okay, we've gone through the first few pages, the 15 minutes of video of part one, and now we're going to go through and analyze part two. You've seen the video of part two, so we're going to go over and give you some of the highlights. Okay, this is a continuation of the cycle of civilization. Here, as you can see in the first video, he talked about the 12 dead or dying cultures, and 6 have been destroyed by Western civilization. He goes through, here he's going to go through a list of the civilization, its universal empire, and then the decay, which is the invasion and the destruction of the civilization. Like he says, when when you say the 12 that had existed, when you consider that half of them have been wiped out by Western civilization, he says the full frightening power of Western civilization becomes obvious. So we're going to, somewhere in the future, we're going to get another table, a clearer table, so that you can get a better idea of it, because this version doesn't do it justice. The cause, or the chief cause, he says, the ability of Western civilization to destroy other cultures rests in the fact that it has been expanding for a long time. The fact that Western civilization has passed through 3 periods of expansion and entered into an age of conflict 3 times, and each time had its core area conquered almost completely by a single political entity. Normally, when the core area gets conquered by a single political entity, it enters into into the age of the universal empire, because it has stagnated and become stable. But like he says, but has failed to go on to the age of the universal empire because of the confusion of the age of conflict. There emerged a new organization, society capable of expanding by its own organizational empires. It's basically, whatever reason, he gives several reasons, it's able to find a new organizational principle and start expanding again, start growing again. And he said, and here he gives you the keys. He said, this is the characteristics, the 4 phenomenal characteristics of the age of conflict, and look at them. Okay, number 1 is the decreasing rate of expansion. It's not growing anymore. This causes the class conflicts, and then they turn into wars and into irrationality. Every time you see a lack of growth, you're going to get these 4. Then he gives you the opposite when things expand, when things grow. Okay, your demographic grows. In other words, your population and the very types of people grow. Okay, and then they go out and they assume a large degree of geographic area. Okay, and this brings in resources, which increases production and knowledge. The shift from the age of conflict to an age of expansion is marked by the resumption of investment of capital and accumulation of capital on a large scale. The investment of capital and the accumulation of capital, you can put that into resources. You can put it into money, you can put it into resources, you can put it into production. That's what it means. And that expansion, or that growth, the resumption of growth, can kickstart you from the stagnant or slowing age of conflict into the new age of expansion. And say, here's another key. The age of conflict was marked by the decreasing rate of investment and then a decreasing rate of accumulation of capital. Look at that. Those things cause wars. Okay, here we're going to do a breakdown, a history of Western civilization. forensic history of Western civilization. Okay, it came out of the Roman period, or the classical civilization, uh, and from the pieces of the Roman civilization, it started its own thing, its own society. Yeah, okay, and this society, gestated into from in this period gestated into a new civilization. Okay, which it organized under its infantile system, which was feudalism. Okay, you can see here the pieces that it brought together to gestate and form its own civilization. The gang plow, three field system, feudal network of the medieval world. The mounted warriors, where there used to be foot soldiers. Under Rome it was foot soldiers. The mounted warriors came from the invaders. This brought in new wealth. Okay, from all this came the first period of expansion, and then after that, like everything else, investment decreases, people get lazy and soft, and investment decreases, and expansion begins to fall. And then what happens when that happens? When that happens, you enter into an age of conflict, and that produced the 100 Years' War. All the biases that you see in an age of conflict come out. He's giving you examples of that. And the core, you're going to say the core empire was conquered in 1420. And that was England and Burgundy. But for whatever reason, feudalism began to die, and a new age of expansion started. A new age of expansion under what? Commercial capitalism. In other words, we went from feudalism to commercial capitalism, which they call mercantilism, and it started a new age of expansion, and that lasted for a couple 100 years. People were happy. Everybody's making money. It's finding new goods, new resources, new lands, and then and after that, it also starts to slow down and decay. And then it's going to, then that's going to give rise to another struggle or age of conflict. And they're going to call this the Second 100 Years' War. And then this continued until Napoleon, which was in 1815, where France under Napoleon conquered the most of the core of Western civilization, just as England had conquered it under the age of conflict. And normally it would have France would have been the leader of the universal empire of the civilization. But then, Western civilization found a new way to expand. And this one, was under Napoleon. Not under Napoleon, but he found a different it found a different the Industrial Revolution found a different way to organize, a different way to expand. And once it started moving, like I said, decay or stagnation is always assumed or destroyed by expansion or growth. And then you have a third age of expansion from 1770 to 1929. And like everything else, after a while you get, you can see these are getting shorter and shorter. And now you come into stagnation, industrial capitalism stagnates, and you get a new age of conflict under its dominant power, which in industrialism under Germany. Germany fought 2 world wars against the core, in Europe. Okay, in 1930, you can see that the age of conflict is reaching its peak. And it says again, it was finally conquered by a semi-peripheral state under Germany, as we said. A semi-peripheral state under Germany, as we said, in 1942. And it says the only way that it was defeated was by what? You know, if you follow Quigley, it has to be defeated by something on the outside, something bigger on the outside, which is the peripheral state, which is the United States. And he said it's not. He said it's not clear whether Western civilization can continue along this path, or to reorganize itself, or enter into a fourth age. You know, and we're going to talk about that. It said if the former occurs, the age of conflict will be undoubtedly continue to unfold into the characteristics of class struggle, war, irrationality, and declining progress. And it said in this case, you're going to get a stasis, or a stagnation in the universal empires. And Quigley believed it would be ruled by the United States, which is the peripheral state. And it says, you know, if you look at Quigley and you followed it up to this point, the universal empire is always a peripheral state. It's always the last state, the large society or empire on the edge of the periphery of the core of the civilization, and then it will ultimately, after 1,500 years, it'll pass and it'll die. And it says under 1,500 years, it's giving you the overview of Western civilization. You know, the mixture, gestation, expansions, conflicts, and we're going to bring out a table that's going to go through that, because you've heard it on table. We're going to illuminate it on the table. I said in each case, he's going to say, he goes through this paragraph, tells you that he says when a expanding civilization comes in contact with a decaying or stagnant civilization, expansion always destroys decay. It says, like it says, in each case, the results of the collision of two civilizations, one in the age of an expansion, one in the age of decay, was a foregone conclusion. The expansion would destroy decay. Said that we're gonna theorize whether who is the next expanding empire. And it says in the matter of various expansions, it's the only society that Western civilization hasn't been able to conquer, or to that point hadn't been able to conquer, it's like you said, its twin brother, which is the Soviet Empire, which it wasn't clear what stage the Soviet was in, but it said it wasn't in the age of the stage of decay, and we're going to get to that.